Good evening, everyone. My name is Radhika, and I'm going to be presenting my paper, Citizen Researchers Reporting for Duty, where we don't ask but consumers tell anyway. To begin with, let's look at what are some of the things I'll be covering in the course of the next half an hour. I will start by talking about the state of the vlogosphere, what it means, how it's evolving. I'll follow this up with what are the challenges that we face as researchers while accessing participants. Then there is a submission of citizen researchers and how they will help us get past some of these reservations that we have. I'll try and showcase this with an example, and I'll finally end with some of the key takeaways. We'll begin with looking at the vlogosphere. Now, when I wrote this paper, the outline of this paper, it was in September last year. And at that time, we were not hit by the coronavirus pandemic. But one of the challenges that we faced even back then was how do we access certain types of participants? How do we access them and also meaningfully engage with them? And then there were vlogs, which were growing in popularity over the last few years. And more Indians and across the world, actually, consumers, people like you and me, were getting onto these platforms to air their views on subjects, to talk about the things that they consume. And in the midst of the pandemic, as more and more people were forced to be indoors, as more and more people were starved of the human connection, we found a further uptake in terms of more and more people actually getting onto vlogs. And what really is the appeal of vlogging? I think it's a two-way street. As a person who vlogs, I think I like the idea of having an audience. I like the idea of talking to people yet not being interrupted in any way. And as a consumer of vlogs, I like to get an insight into people like me. Typically, a vlog happens in the consumer's own home. It actually gives me a spatial understanding of where this person is, what their houses really are like. Is there a place for my product to actually be part of that space? Because we see the bedroom, we see the kitchens, we see the living room. We are able to locate a lot of the responses within the context. Also, while through vlogs, a lot of times people are speaking about all the things that they consume, right? Whether it's a brand of shoes that they buy, whether it is a brand of baking powder that they tried out. So while they talk about products, but a lot of times they're giving us access to something more than that, the softer element. It's not just restricted to material. We actually begin to learn about the values, the beliefs, what they hold important to. Also, I think nobody wants to be boring when they're vlogging, because at the end of the day, while you may be doing it as a means to document your life, as a means to, in a very pure form to just put it out there, but you also are very mindful of the fact that, you have an audience. There is someone who's viewing it, there's someone who's possibly even judging you in terms of your delivery, in terms of the way you sort of set it up, where you place the camera, the level of lighting. So there is a lot of attention paid to it, right? So while it's authentic in terms of its content, the performative nature also ensures that nobody's bored. If you were to sort of look at what is it that the vlogging therefore achieves, right? I mean, aside from the fact that we are getting access to a lot of information, it's very beautiful in how it all comes together, because what essentially the consumer or the vlogger is doing is that they are creating this very rich empathy maps, right? And as researchers, we often want to do this. We want to create very beautiful, detailed empathy maps in terms of what consumers said, what consumers actually do, how do they consume, what are their innermost deep-seated feelings, their insecurities, the joys. We want to capture it all. And typically there are a whole host of questions, a whole host of techniques, projective techniques that we use to access this piece of information. As researchers, what we have realized is that a lot of times we grapple with this one problem, which is a say-do gap. We always walk away from a lot of research scenarios with a feeling that the participant said A, but in fact, he is very likely to do the opposite of it, or he's very likely to at least not do A, right? So, another conundrum we face is that sometimes we actually find it difficult to access research participants. And what I mean by this is that at two levels. One is, actually getting to those people, in the sense that to find those people uh, who are slightly more evolved, possibly, who are slightly more likely to be bored of research scenarios, who are likely to be, a little more niche in in the kind of people that they are. And the second part is, even if I identify and get those people through, fairly high recruitment costs, fairly high incentivization, what we often find is that they don't find themselves as engaged in a typical research scenario. So to sort of look at some of the, 5, 6 problems that we face as researchers, one is there is a rising cost of recruitment in general across the research industry, and more so when it comes to certain niche specific TGs, which are, say, more urban, which are more affluent, which are more, in tech savvy sort of crowd. So, we typically find that our costs of recruiting them, incentivizing them to get kind of have backups because they're likely to be dropouts and all of that. So basically, because of this, it all adds up and the recruitment costs tend to go up significantly higher. Also, this problem of professional participants. There is a bit of a challenge. Either we get participants who are repeats or who are professionals, which is worse. The problem with this is that, A, of course, a lot of times they are not true to your original target group. And more critically, they're so familiar with the process. And in qualitative, since we want them to come with a very clean slate and open mind, this sometimes creates a problem and can be detrimental when we are trying to use complex projective techniques. The other is participants are bored, and we typically find there is this window up to 20 minutes they're engaged, and then you are actually getting to the meat of the discussion probably in your 30th minute or something, right? Which is very critical to you. But by then, the participant is just fatigued, bored, and no amount of chai and tea and snacks really kind of will help them. The other is, while of course moderators who are very skilled are able to access participants, are able to access, um, beyond surface level responses, and have a lot of have a lot of skill to kind of engage meaningfully. But we also know the reality is not all moderators are equal. Not to say moderators are not skilled, but every moderator has their own skill, and not all moderators are able to you know um, get past some of the mental blocks and mental barriers that some consumers might have. Also, like I said, our thoughts tend to be transient in nature. So I pick a product, I begin to interact with it, and I have a point of view. No matter what happens in a research scenario, they tend to rely on memory, uh, and some of it could be false memory, some of it could be, uh, because the thought was so fleeting, and that's so critical to capture, because those fleeting thoughts at the end of the day have somewhere been internalized within themselves, which might reflect in their subsequent behavior, but they're not able to quite articulate it. Finally, there is fear of posturing and being inauthentic, because you put them in a research scenario, which by definition tends to be slightly contrived, no matter how well intentioned and well meaning we tend to be. There is a bit of a challenge that it poses, and therefore, it's possible that we may get responses which are somewhat inauthentic, and therefore our submission ethnography light. Now, the idea of citizen researcher possibly actually comes from this whole space called the citizen journalist, which sort of became popular a few years back. One of the news networks in India, CNN, IBN, actually began to encourage people like you and me to post short clips of a minute or so of things that happen in the neighborhood, and they became basically the eyes and the voice of their neighborhood. Because of smartphones, right? Everyone had a decent camera, and they could sort of record a short video and share it with the network. The network would in turn collate whatever they thought was the most interesting, most relevant, and actually had a news hour dedicated to only citizen journalists. So this idea kind of borrows from that and is sort of adapted from there, which is why we speak about the citizen researcher. But before we look at citizen researchers and how to action it, I think it makes sense to look at vlogs itself. Vlogs is not a unidimensional thing where someone just talks about how they feel, right? We have also noticed that there are also genres of vlogs that exist. So there are vlogs which are, say, unboxing videos, and those are very interesting because typically if someone gets buy something, especially a lot of things are bought online, they could also buy it offline, but they essentially unbox it, and while they're unboxing it, what they're essentially telling you is that why did they buy whatever they bought, what are some of the decisions that they made, what are some of the trade-offs that they made, and what are their expectations, right? So if I bought a garment, what is really my expectation that I will, or when do I see myself wearing it? What was my expectation when I bought a pair of shoes? And a lot of times vloggers also tend to say, I'll follow this up. So I bought a vacuum cleaner now and I unboxed it for you. I told you how easy or difficult it was to set up, and I'm going to use it for a week and I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to use it for a month and then I'm going to come back to you. So actually, vlogs tend to also give very longitudinal data. I mean, the sense that you can actually trace how a consumer has evolved the product, right? I had this expectation, I bought X, then my experience was thus, and then my experience was thus. There could be match, mismatch. We always want to find out, right? How did the expectation, the experience match or mismatch happen? Vlogs actually allow us to access that kind of information. Uh, One of my favorite type of vlog to see is lot to do with makeup. Though I personally am terrible with makeup myself, but I love to watch it nonetheless. And I love to watch things like makeup routine, nighttime routine, hair care routine, and each of this is an implication for marketers and brand custodians, really, in terms of knowing why people buy what they do, what are people's experience like, and what influences them, how is this likely to impact future purchase decisions, are they going to become brand endorsers, recommenders, loyal, how is it going to impact loyalty? And these are all questions that we want answers for, and we kind of can get that if we were to sort of use this as a technique within our research process. So, therefore, how do we action the citizen researcher itself? So, firstly, we recruit the consumers depending on our area of interest, and we ask them to shoot a video or vlog that facet, right? So, if I'm a shampoo brand, I can say, why don't you just vlog just after you wash? Show me your hair texture. What does it look like? How does it feel? How does it feel after an hour? 2 days later, does it feel, does it feel like you want to wash your hair all over again? So, what really happens? So, we could actually sort of track what really happens over a period of time. Uh, what we also do is while people, when they are vlogging, they tend to voluntarily talk about what they did, why did they not do something else, what have they done in the past. So they tend to actually be very anecdotal. They tend to be very expressive, but we encourage them further. So we give them a script in terms of a script, when I say a set of guidelines and what they need to follow while they are vlogging about the facet. The researcher then, when they get all these videos, actually dons the hat of a writer, a director, and of course a researcher. So basically, our intent is to see, the sense making has to be through the process of understanding all that has emerged, to an understanding of, what are all some of the interesting facets that have emerged, and what are some of the trends trends that we can see, where do we see problem areas, where do we need further understanding. And obviously, a lot of times when we use this technique, we do follow up qualitative interviews as well. Sometimes it's not enough because obviously vlogging is a one-way phenomenon, because the person is delivering their message, but we don't quite have a chance to question them. So we can also get back to them with queries. We can also we in a way become the commenters uh, of the comment section of like a YouTube video. So it's an interesting two-way interaction. And once we've got a sense of this consumer, once we've got a sense of their interaction with our client's product or brand, we're able to put together a film. And what really happens is the client gets a 5-minute consumer film with the researcher comments and takeouts and a way forward for the original ask. And it's fantastic simply because there is no PowerPoint involved, which is such a joy. So now to sort of showcase this citizen researcher, I'm going to be sharing a video of an exercise we did on what's in your bag and what did we learn about people.
This is the first pocket. This is my little prayer book.
This is just an energy card which I keep in the wallet, which apparently is meant for good energy. For essential.
Very me करके brand है. I don't know when I bought it or from where, but I really like this shade.
And a concealer from Benefit. I have this perfume from Victoria's Secret.
A hand sanitizer is important. You need it at times. When you're shaking hand after having shook hands with someone who has a cold.
I also have a spare toothbrush which I generally carry because of my random friend plans.
My daughter's school iCard, some emergency medicines for the kids, lipstick and nail polish. Nail polish because when I'm in transit, that's the only time I get to apply these kind of things.
I have a Regalia HDFC credit card. I have my salary account debit card. This is my another savings account debit card of SBI and a duplicate of my Aadhaar card. And I used to also have Jet Air Privilege card, but now of course it's redundant.
All right. So to end with, what are therefore some of the key takeaways from this exercise? One is citizen researchers allows us to save costs on participant recruitment because the participant is incentivized really on their own to volunteer their beliefs, their behavior. It's a little more easier to handle. More critically, we have very, very engaged research participants because they really enjoy the process given the performative nature of it. Uh, there's also far richer insights that we get because participants are volunteering information themselves without us kind of prodding them to share their views. Also, the clients get a 1 minute video or a 5 minute video, basically a nifty video for them to make sense of rather than a lengthy PowerPoint presentation, which sometimes requires a lot of reading for them to really get to the heart of it. So this is a very interesting way of presenting as well. It also gives us access to certain types of PG a little better. So we know, for example, the youth is notoriously difficult to engage with in a conventional research scenario. So this kind of works very well because they sort of enjoy the process without having a researcher sitting in front of them asking away questions. And we all know democracy is a beautiful thing. So why not have research in a democratic way, research of the people, by the people, as volunteered by them, telling their stories, their beliefs, their truths from their mouths. So I think it's a wonderful way to engage with participants. And I would like to leave you all with this thought. Yeah, thank you all for being so patient and for indulging me. Of course, you all had no choice because this was again a one-way conversation. I hope all of you all are staying safe, and yeah, thank you all so much.